Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody has had a great week and is looking forward to a fantastic weekend. Everyone in today's class right now, we are looking at an IELTS reading section, and we're going to be discussing how to read and how to learn for that Band 9 score. While we wait for some of your classmates, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Please check us out there. For the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of those channels or on both of those websites, we have lots and lots of materials to help you improve your reading and other sections of the exam. Welcome, Jaspal. I hope my day will go well. Also, thank you for that. I appreciate it. This is our Academic IELTS website here with the blue background. All you have to do to join our premium IELTS package is click that big red button. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. You've got access to lots of reading exams as well as lesson videos, fully interactive course, computer-based tests. We are an official IELTS test registration center and certified agents. So you're in good hands with us. Welcome, Natalie. Welcome, our members. It's good to see you. For the general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com, green background. Again, just click that big red button. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. Welcome, Shahid. Hi, Irfan. Once you gain access, you will have a My Student account. And in your My Student account, you're going to find computer-based practice exams, a full online course, workbooks, lesson videos, audio CDs, and much, much more. So it's a great way to prepare for your exam and really get those high band scores. You can even find students for speaking, or you can book speaking interviews with me or with IELTS teachers. So great way to learn. If you haven't yet, get our apps. Our apps are in your Play Store. Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. Those link to the websites. And if you have some questions, just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com. I will gladly answer your questions. I have taken the IELTS exam. I have examined the IELTS exam. I have marked the IELTS exam. I've been teaching IELTS for over 10 years, over 15 years now. So I can answer just about any question that you might have. We will have listening part 3 and 4 today as well. And then tomorrow we'll have questions and answers for our members. And we'll have speaking part 3 for everyone. So more classes. Mahi, good luck on your exam tomorrow. All right, let's get into today's speaking. So this is a second passage. This is from the academic, but the reading section 3 of the general IELTS exam is pretty much the same as the academic reading passages. So if you can do well on the academic reading passage, you will certainly do well in the general reading as well. Now, this is reading, so make sure to read and repeat, or not repeat. Well, yeah, you can repeat, absolutely. So when you hear me read, repeat. What I meant to say was read aloud. Aloud meaning so that you can hear yourself. And that's basically repeating. So when I'm reading a paragraph, when I'm reading the questions, just read with me nice and loud. And then you are, in fact, repeating me as well. Okay? Umaro is saying, teacher, pronounce well, please. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Umaro. My pronunciation is fairly clear, as from what I hear from most students. It's a West Coast style accent that you will hear in Vancouver, Los Angeles, San Francisco. So all along kind of the West Coast of North America, you'll hear people speak with a very similar accent as myself. And East Coast North America is quite similar as well. So Toronto, New York, Miami, they have quite a similar accent to the West Coast. Interestingly, the central part of North America has a little bit of a different accent, especially the southern part of the U.S. has a different accent. So, but anyway, back to point here. So, reading. Step number 1 in reading, read the title. Okay, always read the title so that you can start to think about what this passage might include. So let's do that. So Steve Wozniak, the visionary you've never heard of. All right, so when I read this title, I want to think about it a little bit. So what can this mean? So Steve Wozniak, the visionary I've never heard of. Okay. When the author introduces the title gives you a snapshot of the passage and the information. So it's really important to think about it. Okay. So step 1, read the title and think about it. You can think, what does the author intend by this? Okay. So in this example of Steve Wozniak, the visionary you've never heard of, so here when I read this, I can immediately get the feeling that here's a person, their name is Steve Wozniak, and they seem to be probably a very important person in history, but somehow not famous. Okay, so that's what I would think when I read this. Thank you, Natalie. So Steve is a very important person for development, but for some reason he is not famous or well known. Okay, so after reading this title, that's what would come to mind for me. Now, who is Steve Wozniak? Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure. So the next step to get some more details, some more ideas, is to quickly look at the questions. Okay, so step 2 is skim over the questions to get further ideas of the passage. But importantly, only read information or questions that are in the passage. So that means, like, don't read multiple choice answers or true, false, not given. Okay? Because those have lots of information that is not in the passage and it's just confusing. Okay? So let's take a look at those questions. All right, here we go. So which paragraph contains the following information? Write the correct letter A to G in boxes 14 to 18 on your answer sheet. In the computer-based exam, you don't write the letters, you just check the box. You'll see like a table and then you check the box when it's the correct. So you'll see something like information about Wozniak's youth, and then you'll have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you have to check the correct one or tick the correct one, okay? Mahi figures it's somebody with an innovative perspective. Perhaps, Mahi, we'll find out. Okay, so here we go. Number 14, information about Wozniak's youth. All right, so when you're studying this at home, what you want to do with this type of question, a really good strategy, is to paraphrase the question. Now, you cannot skim or scan for these types of questions because maybe this is in the last paragraph and you have to skim read the whole passage just to get one answer. So that doesn't work, okay? So you have to read the passage. You have to read it correctly, okay? All right, so information about Wozniak's youth. I would paraphrase this at home as Wozniak's early years, or simply background. Okay, so when I'm studying at home and I see this kind of a statement, I would say, okay, it's Wozniak's early years. It's Wozniak's background, right? So prior to his adulthood, okay? Yeah, so Bakrat says, I know he was Apple's co-founder. Very good, Bakrat. Yeah, indeed, he was. And if you know a little bit about him, that's going to really help you, okay? Number 15, a stock price skyrockets. So the value of shares increases very quickly. All right. So again, at home, you want to go through each of these and paraphrase them because in the passage, you're not going to see this exact information. All right. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay. All right. Number 16, learning from another company's technology. So gaining information from another business's development. The origin of Apple in telephone company. So the early beginnings of Apple with telephones. And Steve Jobs steals from Wozniak. So Steve Jobs takes something from Wozniak without Wozniak knowing. Okay, now here's a name that I know, Steve Jobs. All right, and Apple. So right away, I'm starting to get the idea that, okay, Steve Wozniak is somehow a very important person for the conception and development of the Apple company, okay? And that's good, okay? So I'm starting to now get a little bit more clarity of who this person might be, all right? And that's exactly what you want to do. So it's very scary to start reading a passage where the information seems very foreign and unclear. And that's what you want to avoid at the beginning by going through these steps. Okay? All right. So let's keep going to the other questions. Now, this is a paragraph completion here. So choose no more than 2 words from the passage for each answer. Okay, so it's 2 words. Always pay attention to the instructions, especially when you start to answer these questions, okay? So Steve Wozniak's beginnings. All right. All of this is going to be in the passage. Again, at home, it's really good practice to paraphrase this. Let's read over it. So again, this is reading, so make sure to read with me. Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world. Though Steve something has been the face of the company, it is actually Wozniak who provided a lot of the engineering and something ability. Wozniak was born at a time decades before the boom in San Jose, an area which would come to be nicknamed something. Wozniak got his start in technology in the 1970s by making a device called a something that would allow for free long-distance calls. The profit from these devices was necessary so he could start a something, the company that would change the world soon after. Okay, sure. Now we've got a little bit of multiple choice. How much money did Steve Jobs unfairly take from Steve Wozniak? I can see this is connected to the other question, which is steal. And then question 25 to 26, complete each sentence with the correct ending, A to F below. So here, two more questions. I don't worry about the choices because I don't know what is included in the reading, what is not. So again, just read over these nice and fast. In just a few years after the time of its founding, Wozniak's something, okay? 26, there may not be an exact link from Wozniak's contributions to Apple to the company today. Something, okay? Fine. So now let's go back and let's read this. Before I go ahead and read this passage, what should I do? What should I remember to do? Members, can you tell me what is a very important step here, especially because I have that question, which is which paragraph contains the following information. So we talked about this yesterday, and I'm just checking who really paid attention to yesterday's lesson. Okay. Yeah, very good, Paulo. So visualization, Buckrat, even one step further. So become Steve Jobs. Georgian, don't focus on keywords. That's not going to help you because the passage has a lot of paraphrasing with the questions. Okay, so keywords is not a strong strategy. Okay, so what you want to do here so that the information is organized in your head is visualize, okay? So visualize that you are Steve Wozniak, okay? Okay, this will help you keep the information organized and in your head. All right. So let's do this. We're all Steve Wozniak. You're Steve Wozniak. I'm Steve Wozniak. We're all Steve Wozniak. It's kind of like the Twilight Zone, okay? All right. So here we go. Let's go with paragraph A. Just read with me. So founded in 1976, Apple Computer, now Apple Inc., is one of the world's biggest companies, whatever way biggest is measured: sales, market capitalization, cultural impact, or otherwise. Apple is top of the chart or very near the top. For decades, Steve Jobs was the face of Apple. He was the person on stage promoting the iPod, iPhone, iPad, etc. Profoundly intelligent, though he undoubtedly was, Jobs was not the brains behind Apple's technological accomplishments in the early years. Instead, it was Jobs' friend, Steve Wozniak, affectionately known as Woz, who provided much of the intellectual and technological ability that made Apple into an overnight success. Okay, so here I am, Steve Wozniak. I'm an important guy for the brains behind Apple Inc., especially in the beginning. And I have a friend, his name is Steve Jobs. He's the face of the company. I'm visualizing this. Okay, all right. What is this paragraph about? It's the background to the founders of Apple Inc. Okay, so that's another really important step that you want to practice at home. Okay, so step 3. After you read, and this is a very important one for list of headings questions. We don't have that in this passage, but it's an extremely important strategy for that. So after you read each paragraph, ask yourself, what is this paragraph about? Then answer in an accurate and concise way. Okay, concise meaning keeping it short. So the example here is this paragraph is about this paragraph introduces the two key founders of Apple, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who is the brains and who is the face of Apple. Okay, so you want to train your mind to be able to think in this way. Okay, so for the next paragraph, I'm going to ask you to do this. All right, so answer it in a clear and concise way. So let's keep going. Here we go. All right, so pay attention. B. Steve Wozniak was born in 1950 in San Jose, California, USA. Though his brilliance was clear from a young age, his geographic place of birth was a significant factor in his impact on the computing world. In 1950, San Jose was a small suburb of San Francisco with a population of under 100,000. Over the next 7 decades, San Jose's population was ballooned by a factor of 10 and by over 20 when taking into account the metro population. This extreme growth was not an accident. Led by companies like Apple, San Jose became the epicenter of what came to be known as Silicon Valley, the beating heart of global technological advances in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Wozniak was gifted both intellectually and geographically. He had the intellectual ability to create and develop the devices he did, but he was also born into the exact location on the entire planet in which their development was taking hold and was valued. All right. What is this paragraph about? So, in a clear, simple sentence, summarize this paragraph for me. Go ahead, members. Surya, welcome to our group of members on our channel. It's fantastic. Thank you for joining. And to get those exclusive videos, send me an email and then I can hook you up with those special links to those videos, okay? All right. So, Umaro, Jaspal, Shahid, what is this paragraph about? Okay, Natalie says factors that impacted Wozniak. Irfan says the early years of Steve Wozniak. Okay, so I think Natalie, Irfan, you both have a piece of it. You need to express it a little bit more accurately. So you're being very concise, but I don't think you're being accurate enough. Jyoti says Steve Wozniak's youth. Paula Reese says Wozniak's birthplace and time important in the technological world. Yeah, I think, Paula, that's a bit closer to it, okay? So Steve's birth and childhood place. Where technology was booming. Okay. So Steve's birth and childhood place where and when technology was booming, right? So we can even argue that. Absolutely. Okay. So that's kind of the more accurate answer. Okay. So it's about Steve Wozniak's birth and his connection to Silicon Valley. Okay. An area of technological boom. It's another way that you could do it. Okay. Bakrat. Yeah, so what I would change, Bakrat, is Steve Wozniak's context and San Jose becoming the epicenter of Silicon Valley. Good. Okay, so you're starting to get the hang of it. Let's keep going. All right, so here we go. C. Wozniak's beginning in the world of technology was his development of what he called a blue box. Okay, and of course, right away you should visualize the blue box, and I'm using a blue marker today. So there's our blue box. Okay. So blue box, which enabled a user to make long distance calls at no cost. In the early 1970s, this was an incredible accomplishment. Wozniak already, together with his friend and business partner Jobs, sold over 200 of these blue boxes at a cost of $150 each, $928 in 2020. Without the profit from the blue boxes, Jobs admitted decades later there would have been no Apple. So there you go. All right. What is this about? A very important early invention of Steve Wozniak's, the blue box. Okay. Which basically created the seed capital for Apple. Let's keep going. D. The relationship between Jobs and Wozniak was complicated. When the video game manufacturer Atari offered $100, which would be $612 in 2020, for every chip that was eliminated from the circuit board, Jobs, who worked at Atari at the time, offered to split the income with Wozniak if he could reduce the number of chips used in the circuit board. Wozniak did by 50, but Jobs told Wozniak Atari only awarded him $700 instead of $5,000 and gave Wozniak $350 instead of $2,500, pocketing the difference. Wozniak found out a decade later, but forgave Jobs. Okay, so again, another very clever action by Wozniak and a very cruel action by Steve Jobs. This is where Steve Jobs is basically stealing from Wozniak. So when I read this, I visualize that Jobs is stealing my money by lying to me. That's terrible. Okay. Paul O'Ree says the importance of the blue box backing the foundation of Apple. Absolutely. Vency Grigorov, yeah, of course you can participate. Please do. So right now we're reading and we're summarizing the key points of each paragraph, okay? All right, E. In the early to mid 1970s, Wozniak and Jobs worked out of Jobs' parents' garage on the first Apple computer. Wozniak was in charge of the technical end while Jobs was tasked with marketing. Wozniak had gained computer development experience and expertise through the Homebrew Computer Club, a Silicon Valley group that used the Altair 8800 microcomputer do-it-yourself kit. Based on Intel's 8080 microprocessor, one of the world's first, this framework would become the foundation of Apple's first computer. With money from the blue boxes, Wozniak's previous work at Hewlett-Packard, and the sale of Jobs' car, the two young men started Apple Computer. Bum, bum, bum. Absolutely, Vency. Get in there. Dina, same. Okay, so here again, I'm visualizing, right, that I'm Steve Wozniak. I've got a job at Hewlett-Packard. I've got a make your own computer kit that I'm playing around with, and that's what I'm using to create the first Apple computer. I've got some money from those blue boxes, and my buddy Steve has sold his car, and we've got some more money. Okay. All right. So, visualize all of that. We're working out of the garage. F, within 4 years, the blink of an eye in the time of an investor, Apple's value exceeded $1 billion. At the time, it was the fastest rise to that mark in history. In that short time, Wozniak had become a multimillionaire, and it was largely due to his development of the cutting-edge and paradigm-shifting Apple II computer. The Apple II broke the barrier between those people who played around with computers as a hobby and the general public. It had color graphics, an integrated programming language, BASIC, and an optional 5.25-inch external floppy drive. Every family in the early 1980s wanted an Apple computer, and the value of Apple reflected this cultural value. All right, so Apple II comes into the world thanks to Wozniak. It creates an overnight billion-dollar company within the matter of 4 years. Wozniak, I'm Wozniak in this reading. I become a millionaire. Things are looking good. All right, let's keep going. Gee, though Apple would go on to become one of the world's biggest companies in the coming decades, the journey was not smooth, and both Wozniak and Jobs would leave the company in the 1980s. Though Jobs would return to Apple with much fanfare amidst the production of his 21st century marvels, such as the iPhone, Wozniak would not return, except in a so-called ceremonial capacity. Apple has changed markedly since Wozniak left the company in 1985. While it is difficult to draw a direct line between Wozniak's contributions to the company and, for example, the modern iPhone, it is clear that Apple would not exist in its current form without the technological brilliance that Steve Wozniak brought to the Jobs family garage so many decades ago. All right, so here we've got Apple. It's a great and amazing company, and I can definitely say as Steve Wozniak that, hey, it would not exist like this today if I hadn't given my smarts and my abilities in the early years. All right, so there we go. Let's answer some questions. Okay, so I've got a pretty clear idea of these paragraphs A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So these 7 paragraphs are fairly well organized in my mind, and the information as well. So even if I have to search a little bit, I have a pretty good idea of whether the information is in the first third, the second third, or in the last third of the essay or of this passage, okay? So number 14 is information about Wozniak's youth, okay? Which concise summary are we looking at for information about Wozniak's youth? So remember, we summarized each paragraph, right? Which one of these, which paragraph, and I have a very clear idea about this, so which paragraph has this information about Wozniak's youth? Look at Jyoti and Paulo very quickly. Yeah, you're giving me the answer. Surya, very good. So all of you are saying B. Yeah, more specifically, what I'm thinking about here is it's the paragraph that says I was born in 1950 in Silicon Valley, right? Rashika, Natalie, do you all agree with me on that? That this paragraph must be connected to born in 1950 in Silicon Valley, right? And I remember that that was indeed paragraph B, okay? So I don't have to search for this information. It's in my head, right? I think that's why so many of you got this as well. Okay, very nice. So information about Wozniak's youth, paragraph B, right? And if I want to at home and check that, I can, but I'm quite confident. And if I'm practicing for time, then I would not go back. So Steve Wozniak was born in 1950, right? Natalie says yes. Very good. Okay. Number 15, a stock price skyrockets. All right. So which paragraph contains that information? Now, I remember that this one was the $1 billion in 4 years, right? So we read about the $1 billion in 4 years. And I know that that was coming more towards the end of this passage when Apple was already well established. So which paragraph? So I would think either E, F, or G. My best guess would be F, just like Fardius Abood. So I would probably check for that 4 billion. F, within 4 years, the blink of an eye, Apple's value exceeded $1 billion. Okay, so there we go. Very good. A lot of you got that. Excellent. And again, you can do this very, very quickly as long as you keep that mental log, you're visualizing, and you're answering those questions. So this is definitely F. Okay. Number 16, learning from another company's technology. Okay, here, again, think about it. What company? Okay, what company are we learning from here? Okay, Georgian, very good. So Georgian says it's Atari. I don't think it was Atari, but that's one of the companies mentioned. What are some of the other companies mentioned? So Bakrat says E, I think. Okay, Bakrat, I would probably say it's maybe D or E as well. It was somewhere kind of more towards the middle. There was another company that was mentioned, and I think a lot of you know it, so you should think about it. Okay, so there was Hewlett Packard, there was HP. Yeah. What else? Paula Reese says the company of the do-it-yourself kit. Yeah, I think it was called Altasari, something like that. And there was also Intel. Okay, so those were the different companies that kind of popped up, right? Altasari, Intel. So those are the ones I want to look for. And this is the question that I would probably check a little bit and see which one Wozniak is actually learning from. Okay. Or Altair. Okay. So here's E. Okay, let's check that out. Wozniak had gained computer development experience and expertise through the Homebrew Computer Club that used the Altair 8800 micro computer do-it-yourself kit based on Intel's 880. Okay, so gained computer development experience and expertise. Does that mean that I'm learning? Absolutely. Okay, so that's E. Okay, I'm learning from that do-it-yourself kit. Okay, E. All right, Bakrat says, yeah, I got it. All right, the origins of Apple in telephone technology. Okay, so telephone technology, that's the blue box, right? That I made for free long distance calls. I'm not sure how legal that would have been at the time, but Georgian agrees that that's the blue box, okay? The origins of Apple. And where did we read about the blue box? Okay, yeah, Paula Reese says C. That was early on because that was crucial, that was fundamental. It gave the money for this. Now, again, because I know that we're talking about the blue box, if I have to check to be sure that it's C, it's very, very quick. And there it is, blue box. Okay, so notice how this is a much more efficient strategy. Reading the whole passage in the beginning might seem a little bit slower, but in the back end, it's much faster to get correct answers and to be able to answer all of the questions. Hi, Yelda. Okay, so blue box, C. All right, number 18, Steve Jobs steals from Wozniak. He took my money. He owes me $2,000 something dollars. By the way, that's not small money. So back when Steve stole that money from Steve Wozniak, from me in this case, that would have been like $8,000-9,000 today in today's money, or $10,000, right? So that's, stealing $10,000 from your buddy. That's pretty bad. So both myself and Jobs, it's we're worth our money, right? So I'm making a blue box that circumnavigates or circumvents people having to pay for long distance phone calls. Some of you might be young and you might not remember this, but phone calls, telephone lines used to have a very expensive long distance charge back in the day. So I don't know how legal that blue box is that I built. And it's certainly not nice what Steve Jobs did, stealing 10 grand from me. So, yeah, interesting, right? Okay, so D it is. And again, I can check that, but I'm confident that that's D. Okay. All right, so B, F, E, C, D. Those are the correct answers for these matching questions. Now, let's do the paragraph completion. Okay, so Steve Wozniak's beginnings. Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world, though Steve something has been the face of the company. Very easy. You should not have to look for that. Steve Jobs. Make sure that's a big J. Okay, it's not like the word work, Jobs, where it's small. It's Jobs, Jyoti, Paulo, all have that, Mahi. It is actually Wozniak who provided a lot of the engineering and something ability. What kind of ability did Wozniak provide? So what kind of ability? Irfan says technical. Yes, but it's not going to be correct, Irfan. It's not actually technical here. Rashika, Jobs for the previous, yes. This would be in the beginning, so if you're not sure, check. You do have to have the correct word from the passage. Okay, so when it seems really easy, double check. I would definitely double check this, okay? It's going to be in the beginning. Okay, so Steve Jobs was the person on stage, profoundly intelligent, though he undoubtedly was. Jobs was not the brains behind Apple's technological accomplishments. Instead, it was Steve Wozniak, affectionately known as Woz, who provided much of the intellectual and technological ability that made Apple into an overnight success. Okay, it seems the answer could be technological or intellectual. Okay, now it is actually Wozniak who provided a lot of the engineering and intellectual ability. Why is it intellectual here and not technological? Why is the correct answer intellectual ability? And if you put technological ability, you'll lose a point here. Why? There's a good answer for that. Can you tell me? And you'll suddenly realize it. You'll go, oh yeah, aha, IELTS can be so tricky sometimes. Why? Okay, what is it? What's the reason that intellectual? Because some of you are probably thinking, well, either one could work. No, and it's not right. Yeah, very good, Jyoti. Exactly. So this means technological. Okay, so that's technological. Engineering. So if you write technological, then basically you're just repeating the same. So be really careful with paraphrasing. Okay, all right. So yeah, Irfan recognized it as well. So notice that when you pay careful attention, you do recognize it. So Irfan said that before I put that up here. So Irfan says, oh yeah, it's technological, it's engineering. Okay, so be really careful with that kind of paraphrasing, all right? Make sure you catch that. All right, Wozniak was born at a time decades before the boom in San Jose, an area which would come to be nicknamed, and a lot of you will know this, you might have to check the spelling, but it's Silicon Valley, okay? So Silicon Valley, right? Not the nickname of Wozniak, Jyoti, but the nickname of the place, the location. So boom in San Jose, an area, not a person, an area which would come to be nicknamed Silicon Valley. Okay, very good, Paulo. Wozniak got his start in technology in the 1970s by making a device called a blue box. We can use capitals because it was the name, that would allow for free long-distance calls. The profit from these devices was necessary so he could start Apple, the company that would change the world soon after. Okay, those last couple were easy, and I can see that Bakrat, Paulo, Mahi are all getting those nice and fast. So those should not be tough. The tough one was this one here, I think. Okay, that was a little bit of a more challenging question. Okay, so we're rolling along nicely, and ideally when you're going through these strategies correctly and you're doing good reading, even if you don't understand every single word, you should be able to do all of this in 20 minutes. Okay? So, how much money did Steve Jobs unfairly take from Steve Wozniak? This is a bit of a thinking question, but I think you know the answer, and you don't have to read, okay? You don't have to read here. You just have to kind of remember the numbers. Okay, so is it A, $2,150, B, $700, C, $2,500, D, $350? How much? Bakrat, very good. Jyoti, very good. So Bakrat says it's A. Paulo, Irfan, agree. Yeah, it's A, right? Because total they got 5,000 to split. Okay, so it would have been 2,500 each. But Steve Jobs only gave Wozniak 350. So 2,500 minus 350 equals 2,150, right? And that's pretty clear from the paragraph. Like, you don't have to really go back and read that, I don't think. You can kind of figure that out. So $2,150 was stolen. So the correct answer is A there, right? Okay. These kind of money questions, or these number questions, be really careful with them in the reading. They usually take a little bit of thinking. Okay, so Steve Wozniak, I reduced the chip count by 50. Each chip is $100. 50 chips, $5,000. But Steve Jobs says it was only $700 for that. Okay. All right. Moving along. Just two more. So complete each sentence with the correct ending A to F below. Write the correct letter A to F in boxes 24 to 26. It's actually 25 and 26. Okay. On your answer sheet. So in just a few years after the time of its founding, Wozniak's something. Okay. Well, I could finish this in a few different ways. Okay, so I'm always trying to finish this before I look at the choices. So Wozniak's fortune grew to over millions of dollars. Wozniak's inventions became very popular. Okay. All right. That's the way I would finish it. Okay. Yeah, the possessive here helps you to figure out that it must be something that I possessed, right? So now I can read these. So though his contributions were plentiful, no. The company could not have existed without him. Net worth was over $1 million. That kind of looks good. That was what I was thinking. Had created the basic programming language, had gone from a garage to multi-million dollar success. I think the best answer for 25 is C. Okay. Net worth was over $1 million. Had gone from a garage to multi-million dollar success is grammatically incorrect. Wozniak's had gone from a garage. That's not with possessive, okay? Just like Paulo says, you have to pay attention here to the possessive. And when you do these, always put the particle into the sentence. So in just a few years after the time of its founding, Wozniak's had gone. No, if it was Wozniak had gone, then yes, but not Wozniak's. Wozniak's something that has to be a noun. Wozniak's net worth. Okay. So that's C. Okay, number 26. Do we have an F here? We don't have an F. It should be an E here. Okay, number 26. There may not be an exact link from Wozniak's contribution to Apple, to the company today, but it wouldn't really exist without him. 26 is B. It's a fairly easy one. Okay, C was a little bit trickier. Okay. All right, so there you have it. That's how you do a reading passage effectively and, believe it or not, quickly. If I'm not standing here explaining each and every step word by word, then instead of taking 40 minutes, because we always have about 10 minutes of introduction and so on, so instead of taking 45 minutes, it will take you just 20 minutes to do this, okay? And you can do it. All right, so keep in mind to paraphrase, to visualize, to read, not just skim and scan. Don't just look for keywords, okay? You need to do more than that. Again, for lots more reading and reading practice, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and glshelp.com for general IELTS. Paulo, Rashika, Jati, Bakrat, Fardius, Irfan, Surya, great work, okay? Georgian, very good. Yeah, Georgian, really pay attention to the apostrophe possessive, okay? All right, so for lots more, aehelp.com, you'll get all these goodies and much, much more, apps and so on. General IELTS looks like this, green background. Click that big red button to join the premium package. It's well worth it. We're going to be back in 30 minutes with some listening practice for those high band scores, part 3 and part 4. So stick around. Don't go too far. Okay? I'm Adrian. I'm signing out for now, but I'll be back soon in 30 minutes with listening part 1 and part 2. Yalda, Abu, Vensi, come back. Hang out for that. Bye for now.